All right, hello everyone, welcome. I am back here. We're doing some more live stream. When I last left off, had done a bunch of Gatsby introduction stuff. You could check out the link in the playlist here if you want to see some of that Pat stuff. But then after that, I went ahead and did an actual Gatsby course. So you could check that out here. And that just kind of goes in depth into everything going on with that. And I feel pretty good about it. May add more to it in the future, but covers a lot of the major stuff that we need in order to get jamming with WordPress and Gatsby, which I'm finally going to start focusing on now. So let me just check that we are live here, send this out. Cool. So the agenda for today, and I'm going to kind of assume that you've checked out some of the basic Gatsby stuff already, is we want to set up WordPress to work with WP GraphQL. Now Gatsby by default has a plugin, or not by default, but it has a plugin that will work with the REST API, and it basically pulls in the WordPress REST API, converts it all to GraphQL data, and then you query everything with GraphQL as you do internally in Gatsby, regardless of the data source externally. Internally it becomes GraphQL accessed. So what we could do instead is we could install a GraphQL plugin for WordPress that goes on our WordPress site, and then we could query everything directly. And this is really, I don't know, it doesn't matter quite as much when we're doing a completely static site, although I think it's nice to access our WordPress directly rather than through a REST API that can convert it into GraphQL. But really where it's super exciting is you could build dynamic sites with Gatsby, so they don't have to be 100% static. You could do login, you could do checkout, you could do a lot of other things that then you could query your live WordPress site using GraphQL Live and get the same kind of stuff as well. So overall, I think it's a good standard and a direction to go. So we're going to set up WordPress to do that, and I'll show you some plugins that let us access GraphQL inside of WordPress and check out how to access everything and how that works. And then we're going to switch gears and we're going to go over to Gatsby, and we're going to show how we could pull in the same data into Gatsby and build stuff with it there. Now we're not going to, in this session, probably build out too much. I'm more just going to show how to wire everything up. And then in the next session, we'll come back and show how to start building everything out. And all of this course is prep for a Gatsby and WordPress course that I'll also be selling, that I'll throw the link in here too. You could go check out. It's on pre-sale as well. And this live stream will cover a bunch of the stuff, but then that'll really go into super depth on everything. All right, so let's get rocking here. The first step is we need a WordPress site. So I have a Gatsby and WordPress live stream site, basic setup using local. You could use any environment, and you could also use a live hosted one if you have like a staging site or development site you just want to practice with. We won't end up editing or messing up your actual live site, so you could still play around with the playground having this stuff involved. The one thing I'll mention is that I have noticed that sometimes Gatsby doesn't work properly accessing SSL, so in our development stuff locally, even though SSL is enabled for this site, we'll just be accessing it via just HTTP. All right, so that's kind of the main thing. To get this working, we need two plugins. So I'm going to open up my files here and come into, zoom in a bit. I'm going to come into the public HTTP content, and I'm going to go into my plugins folder. So I can't install these directly from the repository. I've got to download or clone some files. So the first one that we're going to need is WP GraphQL. And I'm going to go straight to the GitHub and install that from there. So you could either download and install this, or the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to use Git to install it. So I'm just going to drag my plugins folder over to my desktop so that I could use the command line to do this, and grab the plugin information. And one thing he does note in the docs is that rather than calling it WP GraphQL master, which it will likely be if you just do a normal clone, you want the plugin folder name to be WP GraphQL. So I'll do a git clone and then put it in the folder WP GraphQL. So we should see that pop open. And then we need one other plugin. Well, we don't need it, but I find it super helpful. And that's, did I put that link in there? No, hold on. Here is the link for that. And if you are in the chat and popping by, please say howdy. Love to hear your questions and thoughts on all of this. We're exploring a lot of new stuff here, so not every question is answered, but happy to try to help. WP GraphiQL, and remember this is the interface, and there is another plugin. WP GraphiQL. Is this it? Yep. So now we want to install this one as well. And one sets up actual GraphQL to work, the GraphQL server, and then the other one basically just gives us an interface to work with it. So let's do git clone that, and that's going to go inside of WP GraphiQL. Cool. Okay, so now we could probably come into our WordPress site and activate these. So I'm going to go into my admin here and log in. And again, this could be a live site wherever, doesn't really matter. And let's come into our plugins and make sure that those are installed. Yeah, so now we can see we've got our WP GraphiQL and our WP GraphQL. So let's go ahead and activate them both. And now, if I zoom out in the main navigation, there is, hold on one second, let me get this little, hold on. Switch to the F1, there we go, okay. This will help out a little bit. There should now be a little icon down here. You're not gonna see it that well on my screen, but if I zoom out this way, okay. So you can see WP GraphiQL, we have an interface for this. And I'm actually gonna go ahead and make this full screen here so we could really see what we're dealing with. All right, so this is WP GraphiQL. Now I don't have many posts or pages, so let's just do a little bit of that. Second post, keep on going. Cool, publish that. Get another third post. Getting the hang of it. All right, then let's do some basic pages real quick, just so that we could see that we have some data. Let's do our home page. Let's do an, oh, sorry, that was new page. Let's do an about page. Let's do a contact page, and I think we're good with that. Okay, so this will make sure that we have a little bit of data. So let's come back into WP GraphiQL, and we could see all of our different settings. We could get categories, comments, zoom in a bit on this. Discussion settings. So basically the goal of WP GraphQL is to be able to reproduce everything that you could do in the admin area and access that by this data. So we could both query and we could hopefully mutate it and update it, which is a little bit down the road, but we'll get to. But this is really important too. We've also got menus. So actually I didn't add a menu. Let's come in and add a menu. Menu name, main menu. And let's just go ahead, add a few pages here. Let's add one more on the fly. Should be able to add one here. No, I guess that's just in the customizer. Okay, we'll add a blog at some point, but that'll be down the road. This is just to show us that we have a menu. So we should be able to come down into menus. See the menu name, see the menu IDs. Title, let's query that. Title is blank, that's kind of weird. Those should have data, I'll have to look into it. Yeah, it has home, about, contact. Okay, so it looks like we wanted label. Title is an additional characteristic added, kind of like the meta information. Okay, so there we can see we've got our menus that we could access. We could get all of our posts and our post information. So let's get the slug and let's get the title. And something cool is going to happen when we grab the title of a post. It will allow us to get the format. So with the REST API, we either have raw, which is unformatted, or rendered, which is going to be likely what we want to display, and we can get the content as well, choosing that format as well. So we could see we get all of it just as we would want to throw into a page. So take the time to explore this, and this is really cool that you could query all of this information. You could filter it, sort it, do everything. You could even pull in, see, we could check out what themes we've got available. You could check out what plugins you have, query information about them depending on what's displayed. So pretty powerful tool here. And the cool thing is that this is going to be pretty much the exact same interface that we'll see once we get Gatsby up and running in a second. So now that we have this set up, let's turn our attention over and set up our Gatsby site. Okay. So I'm here in my WordPress site. I'm going to minimize that for now. I don't think we'll need it anymore. And now I'm inside just a generic folder that I'm going to store my Gatsby project in. All right, so the first thing we'll do is we'll set up a new Gatsby project. And that will look like this. We'll just say Gatsby new. And I'm going to call this WP, let's call it WordPress test. Okay, and then hit go. I think that's all we need. So we're using one of the basic Gatsby starters. It really doesn't matter what you start with. We're going to show you how to get this done. Now, normally step 2 would often be to install the Gatsby WordPress source plugin. But like I said, that relies on the WordPress REST API, which we're going to kind of bypass by setting up this GraphQL directly inside of WordPress. So what we could do instead is we can use the Gatsby source plugin. And the Gatsby source plugin is used for accessing basically any Gatsby project, regardless of whether it's WordPress or any API that has it set up. You could access all sorts of things, and it gives you a bunch of examples. So what we're going to do is install this into our project and then configure it before we get up and running too far. Cool. So what we'll do to configure that is, oh, hold on, I installed that in the wrong place. I was supposed to go do that inside of the project, which I did not CD into. Props for anybody who caught that there. Okay, so now let's go ahead and I got to install that Gatsby source plugin. And now I have a configuration file that I could edit and modify. Okay, so here's how this will look. We have this new plugin. I'm going to put it down here at the end, and I'm going to say resolve and then the name of the plugin. So the name of the plugin is Gatsby Source GraphQL. All right. I'm not sure why Gatsby doesn't have that by default. Well, it's probably because everything being modular helps. And then we can set up some options for this. And the options we're going to set up are a type name. So what type of server is this? And this is going to be WP GraphQL. And then we have to give it a field name, which is going to be everything inside of that where the queries will exist. And this is just WP GraphQL. And then finally, we have to give it a URL of where to access this. So here's how we would do that. You're going to go to your WordPress site. You're going to get the URL. And then, as I mentioned, HTTPS, I've noticed, fails here. Maybe somebody has a workaround for that. I didn't look into too much depth. I'm sure that you could get it working. And definitely with your live site, I recommend it, and you shouldn't have the same problems as local. However, in this instance, I'm just doing that. And then you would simply add GraphQL to the end of it. So this is an endpoint. I don't think it's going to do anything for us if we hit it in the browser. Yeah, GraphQL request must include, so you need to send an actual request, so this didn't work. But we'll be able to, Gatsby will actually take care of sending these requests for us and hooking it all in and basically picking up everything that is inside of WordPress. Oh, I might have been wrong on field name. This, I think, is actually what Gatsby is going to refer to all this data as. So we should have a little thing inside of our graphical interface that says WP GraphQL, then all of our WordPress stuff data there. So I may be wrong, but you might be able to rename that. I'm just going to leave it as is based off of what I've already got working here. So let's go ahead and test this out. This is kind of our last step. We're going to run Gatsby develop here. I've already got something running. Of course I do. So, oops. Yes. All right. So that should boot it up. And when we go to the main site, we're probably not going to see anything yet. It should just be a normal Gatsby site, default starter. But when we go to our graphical interface, so if I just go here, yeah, this is just a normal Gatsby site, nothing special. We're not seeing any WordPress content there. What I'm really interested at this point is going over to graphical. And let me go ahead and make this full screen as well. Okay. And now notice that we have all of our core basic stuff. If we go into all site page, we could see the path to each one. Let's see. Yeah, so we should have our basic pages there, but that is not going to find our WordPress pages. So what we have to do is come down here, and you could see WP GraphQL is one of the options here. So this is great because when we open it up, check out what we have access to. All of our categories, comments. Let's pull in our menu. Let's just kind of reproduce some of this in Gatsby. We don't have the menu ID, so let's get all of our menus. And I'll show in upcoming live streams in the course how to get all this stuff and build out with it, as well as write back to it, which is an important part for WordPress, because WordPress can build static sites and make them super easy to update, but chances are your clients are going to want something dynamic, whether it's a contact form or it's a chat form or anything like that. So I'm sorry, not a chat form, a contact form or comments, all these sort of interactive features. So that is possible to do, and we'll get into all of that. However, for here, we could just see, let's just get our main menu. Notice that it is taking a second because it has to query that local site. So that'll happen during the build process. If you're building live, of course, everything, or if you're building dynamically in the client side, then everything will often take a few seconds. But building the site out, it'll all become static. So we've got our main menu. Let's come down here to posts and check out our title, of course. And notice how it gives us the exact same options here. So we could pick rendered, we could get, I haven't played with terms before. Yeah, this is gonna get, let's see. I don't think there are any. Yeah, let's take terms off for now. Let's just do the title. Cool, it's got the hello world, third post, all of those. Great. Okay, so this is kind of where I wanted to get in this initial setup, just to get you comfortable looking at WordPress data through GraphQL, being able to query everything. And again, if we compare this to the interface here, and we come into GraphQL here, how do I get my Explorer back? Okay, there we go. This interface is going to be the exact same as everything inside of our WP GraphiQL right here. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Now we can query everything. Hopefully by this point, if you've been following along, took the course, and been playing with a little bit of Gatsby, you're getting more comfortable with GraphQL and how to do stuff, and we'll certainly learn more as we go along here. So I hope you found this little thing helpful. Please like, subscribe, go ahead and check out. Oh man, there's some folks in here. Let me just say howdy, Andre and howdy folks, thanks for popping by, appreciate it. So yeah, please like, subscribe, check all this stuff out. I hope you like the live streams, and I'll be back real soon to keep on going, because now I'm in go mode now that my Gatsby Basics course is done for getting this Gatsby and WordPress course out. There's a lot of folks looking to play around and experiment with all this, and I'm hoping to provide some helpful resources. So until next time, keep on learning folks, be kind, talk to you soon, peace.